And this is what happens when it takes too long to find the stop record button.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to another episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show. It is a White Snake episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show, as here I go again on my own. Josh feeling under the weather, dealing with some migraines, so I've got his picks for the year. Today's show is all about our way too early season prediction. Going to go game by game through the Miami Dolphins 2021-2022 regular season schedule. The wins, the losses, give you the overall record and where we believe the Dolphins will finish. What I'll say is, look, right now it's the middle of May. The season starts a couple weeks into September. These are our way too early predictions. So these are not our official predictions. These are our predictions as things stand right now, given what we know about the Miami Dolphins, what we know about the landscape of the league, and all of the opponents that they're facing. But the schedule was released this past week. We're all excited. I know if you're any kind of Dolphins fan like myself or like Josh, you're going to do the same thing that we do, which is you're going to go by game. You're going to say, that's a win, that's a win, that's a loss, that's a win, that's a loss. And you're going to come up with a final record. But again, it's May. This is as fun as it is feeble, because it really, again, so much can happen, whether injury-wise, transaction-wise, that could totally change the way we feel about the team going into the season. But hey, this is for fun. The schedule's been released. We're excited. It's an exciting time to be a Dolphins fan, given the upward trajectory of this team. So we're going to get into all of that, and we're going to break this thing down game by game. And I'm going to give you my initial reactions to the schedule as well as our game by game picks. But before we do any of that, I'd like to remind all of you that if you aren't doing so already, to follow us on Twitter at Same Old Dolphins. Make sure to like, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And most of all, make sure that you are going every single day to DolphinsTalk.com. It is your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins, whether it's news, analysis, articles, just anything Miami Dolphins related. The network continues to grow. The content continues to grow. And slowly but surely, we are becoming the place to go for all Miami Dolphins fans, for all of your Miami Dolphins content. So please, make sure, if you're not going there every single day, to start going there every single day. Make it part of your daily routine to head on over to DolphinsTalk.com. So the schedule was released this past week. And look, everybody's got their initial reactions. Everybody wants to see, when are we playing our rivals, the Patriots, the Jets, the Bills? Where are our toughest games? The first thing that I always look at is, just overall, any stretches of the season that I think are particularly difficult or particularly easy. And the first thing that you notice when you look at the schedule, because it's just, your eyes are typically just going to start right there at week one, is that we're starting the season the same place we started last year, at New England. And then the second week of the season at home against Buffalo, just like we did last season. And what's worse is that for the second year in a row, you look at that first stretch of games, and it is brutal. It is a very difficult start to the season. So last year, the Dolphins started the season 1-3, and the hope, look, obviously we started 0-4 the year before that, but I don't really count that against Brian Flores when you take into consideration where this team was heading into 2019. So I just kind of write that one off. But still, nonetheless, over the last 2 years, the Miami Dolphins have started the season 1-7 in the first month of the season in the last 2 years combined. And when you look at this year, and you take a look at the first 5 games at New England, home against Buffalo, at the Raiders, home against Indianapolis, and then at Tampa Bay, look, I mean, 3 of those top 5 teams, 3 of those first 5 games are against teams that made the playoffs last year. 1 is against the defending Super Bowl champions, and it's a road game. Another is against the Buffalo Bills, who were in the AFC title game a year ago and appear, just as strong this year as they were last year. And it's never easy to go into Foxborough. And let's face it, Miami played the Raiders on the second to last game of the season. And if not for an absolute miracle pass by Ryan Fitzpatrick, that would have been a loss. The Raiders gave Miami all that they could handle last year. And the Indianapolis Colts, that's a team that was in the playoffs last year and has, seemingly upgraded their quarterback position with the addition of Carson Wentz. So this is, that's another team that, is not going to be an easy game. It's no pushover at all. So when you look at those first 5 games, look, the Dolphins could very easily be starting this season, 1-4. I don't believe that they start the season 0-5. I think that, the Dolphins are good enough that you could probably assume that they're going to get a win in one of those first 5 games. But probably the key to the season is not putting themselves behind the 8 ball and starting this season 1-4 or worse. I think if you can come away with 2 wins in those first 5 games, I think from there, the schedule eases up a bit. There's a little bit of a stretch there towards the end of October, the beginning of November, where we will have in 3 weeks, we'll have 2 of our toughest games on the schedule, which is at Buffalo and then a home game against Baltimore on short rest on a Thursday night. The good thing about that is sandwiched between those games is a home game against the Houston Texans, who may be the worst team in football this year. So, if you're going to have your 2 most difficult games coming in a 3-week stretch, you'd like to have a home game against, sort as close as the NFL could come to a cupcake, sandwiched in between with the Houston Texans. After that, that's when the Dolphins have their most favorable stretch of the season. So when you come out of that Baltimore game, that's 10 games into the season. My belief is if the Dolphins can be 500 or better coming out of the first 10 games, then the world is their oyster coming out of it. And the Dolphins should be able to make a great playoff push, because after that, they've got a road game against the Jets. And then they have a stretch where they don't play a road game for an entire month. They have 3 consecutive home games plus a bye thrown in there. And those opponents are the Panthers, not overwhelming. The Giants, not overwhelming. Then they get the bye, and then they get the Jets. To me, that stretch from the road game at New York to the 3 home games, that is a built-in stretch where if you're trying to make the playoffs and you're trying to make a playoff push, and the Dolphins have made this jump that we all hope that they've made by the 10-week mark in the season, the Dolphins should be at a point where the chemistry is there with the new pieces. Tua at that point has played more than a full regular season's worth of football, health assuming he's healthy. At that point, playing those teams, those should be wins. Not, they could be wins, or maybe the Dolphins are wins, or 60%, they should win those games. No, those should be victories that you just write down as W's right now. Obviously, that's not the way these things work. The game isn't played on paper. They have to go out and perform. But for prediction sake, those are wins. And if the Dolphins are a legit playoff team, they're going to need to win those football games. So if you come out of that, now you've got it. You should come out of that stretch in position to make the playoffs. And then you have your last 3 games of the season. You get road games at New Orleans in a dome, at Tennessee, and then a home game against the Patriots to finish the season off. And so what you may realize in looking at that late season schedule is that you only have 2 road games really in the last 2 months of the season. And your only road games in the last 2 months of the season, first off, they're both against teams that are essentially in the South, New Orleans and Tennessee. One of them is going to be played in a dome. So you really, in all likelihood, you're not talking about brutally cold weather. Obviously, we've got some strange weather occurrences that happen every year. So I'm not going to sit here and play weatherman and say that there won't be some weird cold front and some blizzard that happens to hit in Tennessee in the first week of January. It wouldn't be completely unheard of. But in all likelihood, you're not talking about the brutally cold. You're not having to go to New England. You're not having to go to Buffalo. You're not having to go to Green Bay or wherever. You're not having to go to the Meadowlands. You're going to Tennessee to play an outdoor game in January. The weather will likely not be that bad, and so it shouldn't be a factor. So while the Dolphins have their natural home field advantage that they always enjoy the first couple of months of the season, when things are just brutally hot down here in the South Florida heat and humidity, and the Dolphins sideline is covered and the opposing sideline is not, and they're sitting there and it's about 20 degrees hotter, the Dolphins should have that advantage. They always do, but they don't have the disadvantage of having to go to those cold weather sites later in the season, and that is an advantage. As far as disadvantage, this could be looked at either way. A lot of people like to get into where is the bye? Like where, do we get the bye early? Do we get it in the middle? Do we get it late? The Dolphins are getting the bye as late as you could possibly get a bye. They are getting the bye in week 14. They're not getting a bye until the December 12th game. That means they are playing for 13 consecutive weeks without a bye week. That means that, nagging injuries that crop up potentially at the beginning and middle part of the season, you're not getting rest for those. And so that could be problematic. But on the other hand, it also allows you to kind of get into a rhythm, and then getting that bye week right before your tough, stretch of games to finish the season, you could look at that as, that's your refresher for your playoff push. And since it comes at a time where the Dolphins have, a few of their easier games on the schedule, and at a time where the Dolphins are basically home for a month, then you could look at that as a stretch where the bye really comes at a great time and really sets the Dolphins up for a big time playoff push. So we're going to get into the game by game breakdown. But before we do, it's important that you know that Father's Day is coming and the weather is catching heat. So whether you have a dad bod like me or you're rocking a 6-pack, make sure that you and your dad are smelling nice and shaved where it matters most. Make your dad proud this year and get him and yourself the new Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0, as well as the Refined Cologne by Manscaped. The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 and Refined Cologne is perfect for you and the dad in your life to complete your grooming game. And as always, get 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code Dolphins Talk at manscaped.com. Don't forget that you came from your dad's balls. So this year, show your original home some love with Manscaped. Your balls and your dad's balls will thank you. So let's get into it. I got Josh's picks. I'm going to give you my breakdown. I'll give you my pick as well as the Dolphins picks, or as well as Josh's picks. Dolphins start the season off same place they started it last year, in Foxborough at the Patriots. Look, everybody nationally and particularly locally is just kind of assuming that the Miami Dolphins are the second best team in this division. And it's exciting. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't believe that the Dolphins are the second best team in the division, but I don't think it's as clear cut as a lot of people are making it seem. In fact, I'm not sure that the Dolphins are even the second best team in this division. And that is because the New England Patriots are still very much a threat. Remember that even though the Patriots fell off in the last month of the season and did not make the playoffs for the first time since 2008, which was the Brady gets hurt in week 1, the Matt Castle year, Chad Pennington comes to Miami, and we have that magical run to go 11-5 and make the playoffs. The Patriots had 3 key players sit out last year. Arguably their 2 most important players on the defensive side of the ball, in Dante Hightower as well as Patrick Chung. And they also had their starting right tackle sit out as well due to COVID. In addition to that, the Patriots went out and spent money this offseason. They went out and I'm telling you that Tom Brady won the Super Bowl and Bill Belichick saw that and he said, it is on. And you're going to see the most motivated Bill Belichick this year, I think probably since the post, whatever you want to call it, camera gate, Spygate. That's what we called it. It's been so long ago and they've had so many scandals, I almost forget what they were all called. But probably the most motivated you'll see Bill Belichick since the Spygate scandal all the way back in the early 2000s, because now his legacy is on the line. Because the truth is that Bill Belichick has now never won a Super Bowl without Tom Brady, but Tom Brady has now won a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. And the time is running out on Bill Belichick's career. And the moves that they made this offseason basically said, hey, screw the future. We're spending a bunch of money. This is going to screw us 2 or 3 years down the line. So we need to win now. And that means they're putting all their chips in and they're going for it this year. So if you think that the Patriots are just going to roll over and they are not going to be a team that you have to worry about this year, I just think you're dead wrong. I think the Patriots are going to be very legit and a very difficult matchup. Now, whether or not they're the best team or a legitimate team early in the season with all of those new pieces, still question marks around their quarterback situation with as far as is it Cam Newton? Is it Mac Jones? I think there's an argument to be made there that if you're going to play the Patriots and you're going to play them in New England, the time to do it is early in the season. And that's a good thing here for the Dolphins. But we also sat here and said the same thing last year about going to New England, their first year without Tom Brady and having to figure out their offense. And you're going to New England and you'd rather go there in September than having to go there in December and January. And they absolutely blew Miami's doors in. So that said, Miami also, I believe, is a far better team right now coming into this season, having had the experience of last year, having had a full offseason. They will have had a whole training camp. They'll have had a whole preseason. Tua will have these games under his belt. The Dolphins also will be working in some new pieces, and they will also be without Will Fuller for the first game of the season. So you have to take that into account as well. I think this is a close game, but I can't, in good conscience, really pick the Dolphins to win in New England after going out on a limb and picking them to win in New England last year and watching them get completely and utterly dominated. So as much as I'd love for the Dolphins, and I feel like the Dolphins could win either of these first two games at New England and then home against Buffalo, I gotta say that this is a loss. Now, Josh, on the other hand, he's got the Dolphins going into Foxborough, that 4:25 game Sunday, September 12th, and he's got the Dolphins coming out away with a win. So we've got our first difference on the schedule right out of the gate. I've got Miami at 0-1. Josh has Miami at 1-0. Week 2, Miami gets their home opener at Hard Rock against the Buffalo Bills. And again, Miami in better shape now to take advantage of their home field advantage against Buffalo than they were a year ago. But that said, Buffalo is a ready-made Super Bowl contender right now. And Miami has severely struggled against Buffalo. They've lost 5 in a row to Buffalo. They've lost 7 of 8 overall to Buffalo. And the one game that they won against Buffalo, they lose if either Josh Allen throws a better ball to a wide open Charles Clay, or if Charles Clay, makes a reasonably difficult catch in the end zone. The Dolphins easily could have lost 8 games in a row to the Bills. So I don't think you can predict this as a win unless you're just being a blatant homer. So I've got the Dolphins at 0-2. Josh, on the other hand, he's all in. He is drinking the Kool-Aid because he has the Miami Dolphins at 2-0 after winning their home opener against the Bills. Homer Josh is back. So I've got the Dolphins at 0-2. Josh has the Dolphins at 2-0. Week 3, look, I've got the Dolphins at 0-2. So this week 3 game at Vegas becomes a huge game because you do not want to start the season 0-3. I said coming into this that in that stretch of the first 5, I really think you got to find a way to win 2 games. If you win 2 games, I think you're good. And then in the first 10, I think you got to be 500. So this becomes a huge game. Otherwise, you're really putting yourself behind the 8 ball to start the season, and you're going to Vegas. It's not going to be their home opener at their new stadium. It will be their second home game at the new stadium. 4:05 start in Las Vegas. The Dolphins have typically played pretty well on the road, whether it's been in Oakland or in Vegas against the Raiders. Look, last year, as I alluded to before, the Dolphins were really lucky to come out of there with a victory. But the fact is they did come out of there with a victory. And I believe the Dolphins are a better team now than they were at that point last season, where they were kind of leaking gas going into the playoffs, but they found a way to win that game due to some, Fitz magic. And the Raiders, it's just a weird offseason. They had a weird draft. They kind of shuffled their offensive line a little bit. There seems to be a little bit of dissension, whether it's in the front office or in the locker room. It's hard to really get your fingers on the pulse to know really what's going on there in Vegas. But I feel like while there's a definite upward trajectory with the Dolphins and not so much with the Raiders, and because I have the Dolphins at 0-2 coming into this game, just the urgency that they'll be coming into this game with, I think the Dolphins go into Vegas and get a victory. And much to nobody's surprise, Josh has the Dolphins winning and going to 3-0. So that brings my record for the Dolphins through 3 weeks to 1-2. Josh has them at 3-0, and that has us coming into a home game against the Indianapolis Colts, a team that has a very good defense, but major question marks on the offensive side. We're not sure if Eric Fisher is going to be physically ready to play at this point at left tackle for the Colts. We don't know about the chemistry between newly traded for Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts receivers. So there's a lot of question marks about the Colts offense, but the defense is legit. And you could say the same thing about the Dolphins. So I think this is a really evenly matched game between the Colts and the Dolphins with two very similar teams. Question marks on offense, essentially new quarterbacks, new weapons, new pieces on the offensive line, but really good defenses. I think you're looking at a close, low-scoring game, but you're also talking about a 1:00 Sunday afternoon game for a team that is coming from Indianapolis to play in Miami in that heat and humidity. Give me the Dolphins at home. Dolphins even up the record at 2-2. Josh has the Dolphins winning and going to 4-0. That brings us into the Week 5 matchup at Tampa Bay against our old nemesis, Tom Brady. First time playing Tom Brady in the pewter uniforms of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending Super Bowl champs. I'm not necessarily scared of the Bucs here. I think we match up well with them, given that they have a lot of weapons, but the strength of our team is our secondary. I think we've beefed up in the middle. I think our defense should easily be a top 10 defense and should really, I'm expecting it to be a top 5 defense with all of the resources that we've allocated there over the past 2 years. So I wouldn't be shocked if we went into Tampa Bay and came out with a victory, but I'm not going to predict it here. I've got the Bucs taking care of business at home. Dolphins fall to 2-3, and here Josh finally has the Dolphins taking their first L of the season. So I've got Miami at 2-3. Josh has Miami at 4-1. Week 6, we're going to London. We're going across the pond again. And I think for the first time ever, we're going across the pond and not playing in Wembley Stadium. We're actually playing in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, it's a neutral site game. I'm happy here for a change. We're going to London, but we're not losing a home game. We're losing a road game. And so that really, just to digress and go back into just the overall breakdown of the schedule, this is a huge win for Miami because you're already getting an extra game in the schedule, which ends up being a home game. So Miami's getting 9 home games this year, and they're losing one of their true road games to a neutral site game in London. So instead of having 9 home games and 8 road games, they actually got 9 home games, 7 road games, and 1 neutral site game. So you've got 2 more true home games than you do true road games. And the Dolphins have, one of the bigger fan bases in London. And so the crowd will likely be about 3-1 in favor of the Dolphins. So this is almost like a home game. Yeah, you still got to do the travel, out to out to England. But you're also playing a Jacksonville team that had the number 1 pick this past year. They've got a rookie quarterback. They've, rookie NFL head coach. Not saying Urban Meyer is a rookie coach. I mean, he's obviously proven himself that he can coach, but he's never done it at the NFL level. He's never gone to London. We don't know what Trevor Lawrence is going to be like, right out of the gate. So I think to get them fairly early on in the schedule, I think is a good thing. And I think Miami takes care of business in London and beats Jacksonville to get back to 500 at 3-3. Josh agrees. Josh has Miami at 5-1 coming out of this one. And then coming back home to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Look, a lot of people are upset. They wanted Miami to get Kyle Pitts. They traded down. Atlanta scooped him up at number 4. Atlanta's got some weapons. They're getting Julio Jones back. They've got Kyle Pitts added into the fray. They've got Calvin Ridley. Matt Ryan is still there. I think Atlanta's going to have some explosiveness on offense. They're not going to be a fun team to match up with. But Miami, again, due to the weapons that are due to all of the resources we've allocated there, and particularly in the secondary, I think Miami is uniquely matched up or uniquely suited to match up well with a team with this kind of arsenal on the offensive side of the ball. I should have used the Arsenal line for when we were going to London, but here I am 1 week later. But going up against the Atlanta Falcons, look, the Falcons have question marks on the offensive line, and the defensive side of the ball is really a mess for Atlanta. I think Miami handles Atlanta at home fairly easily and gets themselves over 500 for the first time all season, going to 4-3. Josh has Miami winning again and has Miami starting with their 6th win in 7 games. So, look, by this point, you got to be feeling like, look, Josh has Miami challenging for the division title. He might have the Dolphins in the Super Bowl based on these predictions in the first half of the season. I got Miami at 4-3. Josh has Miami at 6-1. Very next week is Halloween night, and they go to a house of horrors. The old Rich Stadium, it's now called Bills Stadium, Orchard Park, New York, in Buffalo, at the Bills. Probably not going to be brutally cold because you're just, late October there. But it will, it'll probably be chilly. You'll probably be in the 40s. You may get a cold front. It may be a little snowy, but you're not going to be dealing with the brutal cold there. But you will be dealing with a very good Buffalo team. It's on the road. And again, until Miami can prove that they can actually beat the Bills, I'm not picking them to beat the Bills, certainly not in Buffalo. So this is a loss for me. I've got Miami falling to 4-4. Josh has Miami also losing. He's not so maybe, as the season goes on, he's saying, well, maybe I need to slow down a little bit. So he's got Miami losing this one. He's got Miami at 6-2. Still a 2-game difference between us. Right now, we've picked the same, we've essentially picked all of the games the same, aside from those first two, the road game against New England and then the home game against Buffalo. That's the difference between us right now, as I've got Miami at 4-4. Josh has Miami at 6-2. The week 9 game, they get the home game against Houston, as I alluded to before, sandwiched in between probably the 2 most difficult games of the season. They get arguably the worst team in football at home. This has to be a win. Miami takes care of business, does what they need to do to get a victory over the Houston Texans. I've got Miami at 5-4. Josh also has Miami winning this game at 7-2. Following week, short week, 4 days later, they are home, a Thursday night game against the Baltimore Ravens. And as happy as I am that we get Baltimore at home, and as much as I believe that the Dolphins are a much better place to compete with the Baltimore Ravens at this point, the Baltimore Ravens have absolutely owned Miami the last few times that they have played. So there is no way, much in the way that I'm not picking Miami to beat Buffalo until they show that they can beat Buffalo, I am certainly not picking Miami to beat Baltimore until they show that they can even keep it to a 2-score game against the Baltimore Ravens. So this is a loss for me, especially on the short week. Josh also has it as a loss. So I've got the Dolphins at 5-5. Josh has the Dolphins at 7-3. And this is where I said 10 games into the season, Dolphins need to be 500 or better. I've got the Dolphins right at 500 at 5-5. Josh has the Dolphins at 7-3. And this is where you're making that playoff push. You got 17 games this year instead of 16. So from here on out, you got 7 games left. Look, it took 11 to make the playoffs last year. I think you probably feel good if you can get to 11, even with the extra game. I mean, it's very rare that what you had happen last year would happen again. So, if you figure one extra game on the schedule, if the Dolphins get to 11 wins, I think you're talking about a playoff team. If you're under 11 wins, I think that's when things get a little bit dicey and you're looking at tiebreakers and things of that nature. So I've got Miami at 5-5 with 7 games left to go. That means for Miami to make the playoffs with my prediction, they're going to need to win 6 of these last 7 games. Josh has them doing, such good work early on that at this point, being 7-3, they would have to absolutely fall apart to not make the playoffs in Josh's prediction. So let's see how they do, because I think this is the stretch where Miami can really get on a roll. They get, 10 days off, after the Baltimore game, because they play on Thursday night. They get a road game at the Jets. Look, I think the Jets, with the rookie quarterback with Zach Wilson, getting Elijah Vera Tucker, to pair next to Mekhi Becton on the left side of the line, I think gives them really a nice, offensive line foundational, section to build upon. I think that they'll make some strides to get better here, but I think they're very much a work in progress. I don't think that they're a competitive team this year, and I think coming off of what may very well be another shellacking at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens, the Dolphins go into MetLife Stadium and get a victory. Josh also agrees. So I've got the Dolphins at 6-5. Josh has the Dolphins at 8-3. And then this starts a stretch where the Dolphins don't have a road game for a month. They have that road game at the Jets on November 21st. Their next road game isn't until the Monday night game in New Orleans all the way in December 27th. So they're spending the next month of the season at home with home games against Carolina, the Giants, then a bye, and then a home game against those disgusting New York Jets. I think the Dolphins get things started. The Carolina Panthers, intriguing team, lots of weapons there. Not necessarily sold that they've got their quarterback in Sam Darnold, and not necessarily sold that they have much on the defensive side of the ball. They kind of feel like a 500 or worse team to me. I think, look, you're getting them at home. Miami, give me the W against the Carolina Panthers. Josh agrees. He's got Miami at 9-3. I've got Miami at 7-5. Then you get the home game against the Giants. Giants, I still think one of the worst teams in football. You get them at home. This is a win for Miami. So I've got Miami here winning their third in a row, finally getting on a roll at the right time in the season at 8-5. Josh agrees. He's also got them winning their third in a row. He's got Miami at 10-3, and this is where we finally get that bye week. And then we come out of the bye week. We get a flex game against the Jets. Maybe it's Saturday. Maybe it's Sunday. We don't know what time it's going to be. But look, it's a home game against the Jets. We're making a playoff push. We're coming out of the bye. Dolphins get the W. Dolphins are on a roll. Fourth win in a row. I've picked it. Josh picked it. I've got Miami at 9-5. Josh has Miami at 11-3. And then we get those last three games of the season where this is a difficult stretch, but it's not an impossible stretch. Again, you're not having to go to the brutal cold. You're not, these teams aren't necessarily considered Super Bowl contenders. So this is a real stretch for Miami to earn their way into the playoffs against teams that will likely also be battling for playoff position. The week, I guess this would be week 16 game at New Orleans, Monday Night Football in the Superdome. Is it going to be Jameis Winston? Is it going to be Taysom Hill? That's the question. New Orleans, one of the most intriguing teams in the entire NFL because of how good they are defensively. The weapons on offense tell you that this team is Super Bowl ready, but we just don't know what kind of play they're going to get from the quarterback position. And so because of that, I wouldn't be surprised, here we're 14 games into the season. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints are 10-4 at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, 5-9 at this point. I don't think they'll be 4-10, probably not going to be 5-9, but I don't know what kind of team New Orleans is going to be because the quarterback position is so important. So, so many question marks about that team that makes this a very winnable game, but also you never like to be going into that dome, a tough place to play, especially on a Monday night. And if the Saints are battling for playoff position, it's a hugely important game. Tough to pick the Dolphins to win that one on the road. I've got the Saints winning that one. Josh does as well. So we've been, again, we've made it this far into the season. I've got Miami at 9-6. Josh has Miami at 11-4. And our only two differences thus far, with 2 games left to go in the season, are those first 2 games of the year against New England and Buffalo, where I have 2 losses and Josh has 2 wins. And that brings us to at Tennessee, which will be a hugely important game for both teams. I expect both of these teams to be right in the thick of the playoff race. And there we have our first matchup against our old pal, Ryan Tannehill. This will be a lot of fun. It will also be a big test. It will also be a big road test. I think Miami gets the job done. I think Tannehill, look, he had a great year last year. He proved a lot of naysayers wrong. I think he's fine. I still don't think that he's elite or really anything great, but I think that Tennessee has built that team in a way that benefits him. It suits him. If Miami, the main thing here is that Miami's run defense needs to be much better this season than it was last year, especially when you get down the stretch and you're playing a team like Tennessee, because Derrick Henry is going to get the ball 30 times in this game, and we're going to find out if the Dolphins can stop the run. I'm betting the Dolphins can do just enough to win in Tennessee. Give me a Dolphins W at Nashville. Dolphins go to 10-6. Josh and I finally have another difference. Here's one where Josh is not as optimistic. I don't think it's the fear of Tannehill, but you'll ask him when we do our next show or if he tweets it out. I don't think it's Tannehill that he's afraid of. I think it's Derrick Henry and this Dolphins run defense. And so Josh has Miami getting an L against the Titans, so to drop to 11-5. So I've got Miami at 10-6. Josh has Miami at 11-5, which means going into the last season, there's a chance, in both of our projections, there's a chance that the Dolphins have clinched a playoff spot at this point. But in all likelihood, in my projection, the Dolphins probably need to win their last game to play their way in. In Josh's projection, there's a good chance that they may have clinched, but they may be in a position where either they need a win or they need another team to lose just to secure their spot. So you go in with the playoffs on the line, you're at home, and you get the New England Patriots. I think there's a very good chance that the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins have very similar records at this point in the season. I've got Miami at 10-6 right now. I think there's a good chance that the Patriots are sitting right at 10-6, maybe 11-5 at this point in the season. Maybe the Patriots are 9-7. But because I've got the Dolphins losing to them earlier in the season, it's potentially, if the Patriots win, they win the tiebreaker, and that would get them into the playoffs. So this becomes a hugely important game for Miami. I think Miami gets the job done at home. I'm putting my faith in Brian Flores. I'm putting my faith into Tua Tagovailoa that Miami can win what is essentially going to be a playoff game, that Miami will get the job done with a home game against New England. I don't say it with a ton of confidence because, again, I don't believe that the Patriots are going to be a pushover like many of you believe. But given that the game is at home, last game of the year, season on the line, I'm excited about this season, and I'm trying not to be the negative Nancy. I'm trying not to be the brain. I know I'm the heel on the show, but in my gut, I feel like this is a win at home against New England. Miami goes to 11-6. Josh has Miami also beating New England. I'm assuming at 12-5 that Josh has Miami making the playoffs. Me at 11-6. I believe the Dolphins make the playoffs this year as a wild card. I don't believe 11-6 is winning the division. I think the Bills probably are winning 13 or 14 games in this 17-game format. But 11-6, I think, is good enough to get Miami to the playoffs this year. And so I believe both Josh and I have Miami making the playoffs in the third season under this regime. That is exciting stuff. Again, these predictions are subject to change. It is May. The season does not start until September. We still have rookie mini camps. We have training camp. We've got preseason. There's a long way to go, folks. But the schedule is up. We've made our 2 early predictions. And hey, we're feeling pretty good about the product that we're going to be putting out on the field in Miami Gardens this season. So I hope you enjoyed this exercise. I sure do love doing this every single year, and we'll probably do this again right before the season starts. Maybe not so much in depth, but just sort of a season preview where we'll do the record and we'll go through our, who we believe will be the breakout star, the team MVP, the offensive player, the defensive player, the surprise of the year, who's going to be the biggest disappointment, rookies of the year. We'll do all of that prior to the start of the season. And as for the next few weeks, I'm going to start breaking down the film on some of the Dolphins draft class, and we'll have a few episodes of that. And before you know it, it'll be time to talk about some actual on-the-field products, some actual preseason football games just a couple of months away. So I hope you guys stay tuned, subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast. Make sure that you're going to dolphinstalk.com every single day. And give us a like, give us a rate, give us a review. Tweet at me at Aaron the Brain. That's at Aaron the Brain. Tweet at Josh at Amplified to Rock. Tweet at the show at Same Old Dolphins. Let us know what you think. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Go Dolphins!